Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Nurturing Astrology podcast. I'm Dominique Jaramillo, your astrologer and host. I believe astrology can fast-track personal growth, improve relationships, and empower parents. On this show, I will bring you practical guidance and insight from my own work, studies, and life experiences, as well as interview experts to bring you stellar wisdom from other teachers and professionals to inspire you on your journey. I'm so glad you're here and thanks for tuning in. So sit back, enjoy the show, and be sure to follow, like, and subscribe to catch every new episode as soon as it drops. Okay, let's dive into today's show. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nurturing Astrology podcast. I'm Dominique, your astrologer and host, and today I am here for a very special in-person interview with my friend, mentor, colleague, Cornelia Hansen. Welcome, Cornelia.
Thank you, Dominique.
This is so awesome to be here with you in person.
Thank you.
So normally when Cornelia and I come together, we're talking about conscious parenting with astrology and child development. But today we're here to discuss something very special, her new book, An Astrological Journey Through the United States, introducing a new birth chart for the United States. Now I know my fellow astrologers' ears are perking and we're going to get to the chart. But first, Cornelia, tell us, where did this idea for the book come from? Where did this idea of reimagining the US birth chart begin for you?
Well, it came from an accidental review of a book that I saw, and I said, I must read this book. It was called 0 Hour, and it was written by somebody who does Wall Street advising, but he uses historical cycles. And so the cycles he talked about were 250 years, 84 years, and 29, 28, 30 years. And I said, oh, this is Pluto, and this is Uranus, and this is Saturn. So I said, this is very interesting. Not only that, but they were saying that we were coming up to the same configuration. And I said, that seems to be important. This is like an echo in time. So then I decided, well, I'm going to have to look at the charts and see which one is correct. And I started thinking about the charts. All the charts are July 4th.
Right.
July 4th, Independence Day. And then I thought about that and I said, you know what? It was the beginning of a war, which we didn't even know if we were going to win. In fact, when they signed the Declaration of Independence, the names of the guys who signed it were not released because they might be hung for treason.
Right.
Right. So I thought, and they also didn't know, are we going to win this war or not? Most people didn't think so, because you're facing the empire of England with all their army and navy, etc. So though it had to be a war first, so I said there's got to be a different thing that's going to come up with it. So when I started looking at the 4th of July ones, I started feeling like they were not correct.
Okay.
But what else could I turn to? And I was getting frustrated. And I finally went to the computer and I just said, America's birth time, and up came this article, which I had never seen. It was a simple article written in the California Veterans newsletter. And it was, when did America become a sovereign nation? And it gave me the date. And so I said, here's a date. Let me look at this. So I started researching that. It was fun. I mean, it was like pulling strings, trying to find things. Then I found, I said, this is the date, but I haven't got a time and I haven't got a place. So I started looking for the place. And I went to the Senate archives and asked them about this meeting that took place in Annapolis. And so she said, yes, it's all in the minutes. You can get the minutes. Wonderful. Send me the minutes of the meeting.
You called the Library of Congress.
I called the Senate. They have a historical archive.
Excellent. I didn't know.
And I also wanted to talk about when they usually met. She said they usually met at noon, but sometimes they changed it, and it just depended on when the time was. Now this took place in the winter. So I started searching more and more, and I finally said, I got the notes, and I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to read through the minutes. It's got all the minutes of that meeting. Took place. They were waiting for one more senator coming from South Carolina, and he finally got there. And so that's when they started reading the treaty. And the treaty was signed by our emissaries with King George's emissaries. They signed the Treaty of Paris, but then it was sent to America. America Congress signed it, but then it had to be ratified by at least 9 of the colonies, or it wouldn't be effective. They only had 6 months.
Oh.
Otherwise, they'd have to renegotiate the whole thing. So they were kind of like in a hurry to get this done. So I read through the whole thing, and I said, okay, I started to read it, and I read it slowly because I figured, it would take time to read. And when I got through, I looked at the clock, and it was 1:31. So I used that as the time.
Wow.
So because after it was finished, they all said aye, they all agreed to it, and then they all had to sign it. And then they had to send it back to King George's emissary saying, okay, the treaty is signed. And they said, we are now a sovereign nation. So they put that in the paper the next day. Okay, citizens of colonies, you are now a sovereign nation. And it was time for a celebration.
Wow, which was 6 months after
Right.
the July 4th.
Right.
So it's essentially the Treaty of Paris.
Yes.
That's the origin. And
Right.
wow, the research that you did to get to that in itself was extensive.
Right.
Right? So here you sit with this new information, and you now decide, what do I do with this? And I think you said a friend decided, oh, maybe you should write an article about it.
I thought about that, and then I thought about my genealogy. My family goes back to the beginning. And I thought, these are my ancestors. They deserve more. Not only that, but I needed a thesis for the book to explain what I'm writing about. Okay, so what I was writing about were the main issues that America brought, all of these immigrants brought to America, that has affected our national character, that we're still working through.
Yes, we are.
Okay, we're still working through them, right? And right now we reached a point where we're ready to move to the next level, because it's okay to be an adolescent for a while, but sooner or later we have to grow up, right?
Yes.
And we're at that point right now. I feel that America's going to have to wake up.
Yes, we do this, we work in child development, and we had this conversation of, this is an adolescent country. We are a new country. Can countries evolve? Are we going through an age and stage of development here?
Yes.
And this chart reveals this new stage that we're kind of moving toward. So that speaks very much to how your two passions kind of come together.
Yes.
For, teaching, raising children and teaching children and child development and the world we live in and the country.
Yes.
That they're going to grow up in, right? So you bring these two passions together.
Right.
Beautiful. So I have some questions that we're going to dive into here. We know why you did this book. Now, 250 years of history you dove into. I feel like this is bringing such a more credibility to astrology as well. You're a researcher. You love research.
Yes, I love research.
And this isn't the first book. Even Kid Wheels, you did years of research.
Right.
So this idea of not just saying, hey, this is our new chart, but you have done extensive research that's validating this information. Can you talk about the process of writing, the kind of key things, or maybe some of the key moments in history that really kind of nailed this for you as you were on to the right chart for this country?
Yes, I wanted to start at the beginning. So I went back and looked at all these people coming here. Why did they come here? What purpose did they have? And some of them were coming for different reasons, but everybody was coming to look at something new, hopefully with hope. So that was the important part. So I felt it needed a wide context. So I wanted to start at the very beginning. Who are these people?
Yeah.
Why are they coming here? Why are they leaving a home and traveling across an ocean to something totally unknown. But America at that time was called the land of promise. So people had reasons to come, but they had to go through a lot to get here.
Yeah.
So then I went from there. I wanted to talk about the issues that they brought with them, because we're talking about the 1600s, which was the time of colonialism. Okay. And so I went through that to find all of the issues that America's been carrying through its history. For instance, slavery and what that did to our country and how it was ignored when the Constitution was written. Like it was just totally ignored. It wasn't even mentioned. And so, but it had to lead to eventually a civil war. It had to lead to something that changed that. Okay, so that was one of the issues. The other issues is it has to do with church and state. Okay, yes. A lot of people think that we're a Christian nation, but the founding fathers didn't believe that. They were deists. They believed in a God, but not a particular God. And they felt that God had created all this to run naturally and then left. So we had to use our reason and our thinking to be able to solve our problems. So they took a totally different kind of approach. So then I went through all of that. How did we get to the Constitution? Even that is a surprise, because they had the Articles of Confederation, but they didn't work because they didn't have a strong government. You have to realize you had 13 colonies. There were different people, different countries they came from, different religions. How do you put them all together?
Yeah.
They're used to running things their own way. So then they got together and said, we want you to revise the Articles of Confederation. But what they did was they met in secret, and George Washington was presiding, and they wrote a new constitution. Okay, that to me was fascinating. So I had to have the time of the Constitution. So then I made an outline for myself. I said, how am I going to prove this? Is I have to look at the main events that happened in our history and see how they relate to the chart. Okay, so that's actually what I did. It took 2 years of research.
2 years you spent.
Yeah.
Just on the research. Was that before you actually wrote the book?
Yes.
Just the research.
I had the outline of what I wanted to cover, the main events. But a lot of things came as a surprise. Some things I didn't know at all.
Like?
Oh, well, like World War I. Okay. They thought it was the sinking of the Lusitania. But actually, it was a telegram from the British, who had picked up a signal that the other countries were calling Mexico to come into their unit to fight against the United States, offering them to give back their land. And so that got everybody enraged. And so that's how we got into World War I. Wow. I didn't know that. That was new to me.
Wow. So you're learning along the way.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I definitely feel like it's a history lesson that everyone should read. This book is not just for astrologers. I truly believe that it is for the history buff or just the citizen who really wants to know the story of this country. And if you have a love of astrology, that's just a bonus, because it's super validating to go through this.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I tried to validate as much as I could.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, sometimes I could find an exact time.
Okay.
Like when the bomb went off in Hiroshima, they had an exact time that was historically recorded. So I had an exact time. Other people I could sort of figure out around the time.
Okay.
And others, if I couldn't find an exact time, I use a noon chart.
Gotcha. So we're not really getting rid of the July 4th per se. It's just you see this as sort of the next evolution of this country, and it needed to sort of help take us to this next evolution in our journey.
I think so, because when I read 0 Hour, I thought to myself, we are going to have our 250th anniversary, and Pluto's returning to its own place. I said, we must be going through a rebirth.
Yes.
That's what it looks like to me. So what issues are coming up? And I realized I had kept track during Trump's first administration, of all the issues that were coming up to the surface, because America has not dealt with all of them. There's slave, the blacks community, the Mexican community, the Hispanics, the women or women's issues. America's never been exactly wanted to have a woman as president. I mean, we have climate issues, we have all kinds of issues, but they've been laying there waiting for somebody to say, we need to change this. And I think the American public are now questioning our government and saying it's not responsive to our needs.
Right. And when you did those 2 years of research, and your goal was to try and publish the book before the 2024 election, and divinely, for some reason, it didn't happen that way, but it seems almost like divinely timed that it's coming out now.
Yeah, I do believe in synchronicity.
Yeah.
I said maybe it needs to come out when the time is right, because we've had Trump now for how many months? Anyway, we've had Trump as president for several months now, and people are beginning to react to it and all the issues that we've talked about.
Yes.
Women's rights.
Yes.
Climate change. I mean, there's so many things.
So let's talk about the chart a little bit. I know people are going to want to get into it a little bit. Do you want to talk about maybe a key placement or configuration in the chart that stood out to you the most, that kind of like all of these historical events started to really lock in for you?
Right. I would like to do that, yes.
Okay, so now we're going to dive into the chart. So Cornelia, looking at this new chart, everyone's really familiar with the Sibley chart and us being a Cancer sun sign country. So this here, we are a Capricorn sun. So why do you think that is, and is more fitting for who we are?
Well, I think it's fitting when you think about the people who came here, because this was back in the 1600s. It was a man's world. It was a patriarchy. Women couldn't vote. They couldn't keep property or anything. So it was basically run by men. And that's the way he expected it to be. And it's still following us today.
Yes, this is very much a capitalistic country built on capitalism.
Right, exactly.
Which speaks very much to the Capricorn.
Right.
And there is also, now that we don't have the sun in Cancer, but we do have a very key planet in Cancer, which is that Uranus in Cancer.
Yes. That's very important. Okay. Uranus is the point of a yod that points to the Aquarian planets, and the other one to the Venus in the 7th house. Okay. When you think about a yod, you think about generational secrets that are passed down through families. So I found it very interesting that there are so many issues that have been with us since the very beginning, that this is part of it, and it explains a lot. Also, the opposition of Uranus is to Saturn. And so that's the only opposition in the chart. And that really that really shows us how we go back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, between liberal periods and conservative periods. And so we swing back and forth, which leaves a lot of tension on the moon, because the public you never know which one it's going to be or how it's going to affect them. But the yod, I think, is the most important thing. It gave me a lot of information about all the issues that we have. And that seems to be a key point when that's set off.
Okay. So all of these historical events that you're researching and comparing to, that yod seems to be consistently activated at those points.
Yes.
Okay. And I noticed too that it's a Gemini rising chart as opposed to Sagittarius, so it's flipped. Can you speak to the difference in that sort of identity and who we are as Gemini?
Well, there is a July 4th Gemini rising chart.
Oh, that's right.
Yes. But this one I think is very interesting, because if you regress it, you'll find that Uranus was sitting right on here on the 4th of July, was sitting right on the ascendant. If you regress this back. Okay.
And also the ruler of the chart being Mercury is in Aquarius now.
Right.
We have the Pluto in Aquarius now in a stellium with Jupiter, and all of that in the 9th house.
Right.
Very different. Can you speak to that?
Right. Well, if you look at the rising sign as being Mercury, okay, he's in the 9th house, immigrants. That's what you think about. Also, the sun rules the 4th house, our roots. So that being up in the 9th house also takes us back to our roots, like my ancestors. There's just so many things in this chart that are so. I mean, when you look at that Aquarius stellium, I mean, it's quite different.
Yes.
Because you've got Pluto in here.
Right.
So we have a dark side, and it's very difficult for us to look at our dark side.
Right.
And so all the issues that I bring up in the book, you can travel through a whole history, 250 years, and you can see where they kept coming up over and over again. Women's issues came up, Black issues came up, minority, LGBTQ2, I forget how they say that.
Yes.
Different minorities,
Right.
how they've all been part of this whole society that we live in. And I think that's important for us to understand.
Absolutely. And the confluence there of the 9th house is faith and religion and our belief systems, and it's all being challenged there. Now, Pluto is in Capricorn in the Sibley chart. And so when everyone was talking about us having our big Pluto return in the last years, it actually was just activating the Saturn, and I mean the sun in this chart, right?
Yes, Pluto went over the Saturn here when Barack Obama was elected.
And then the sun later on.
Right.
At the end. And so that was kind of not wrong exactly. We're being activated here. It's definitely kind of initiating us. But if in this new birth chart, it's in Aquarius, in the stellium with Mercury and Jupiter, there is this higher vision, this evolution that our country is going through, this growing up, if you will,
and
trying to decide.
Not only it's the North Node, if you look at the North Node is in Pisces, that's visionary.
Right.
And we certainly had vision, and we're still talking about freedom, liberty, all of those things.
Right.
That's part of our character.
Right.
But when you think about it, it was liberty for some, but it wasn't freedom for everybody.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, Cornelia, let's dive into the Chiron of this chart. Let's talk about the wound around this country.
Right. Well, I'm very familiar with that because it's interesting. I have the same wound. It's called insecurity. And I can imagine that these people crossing an ocean and coming to a wild country, not knowing what to expect, felt very insecure. What's going to happen? Will we be okay? So that's part of our nature. It's part of our wound is that insecurity. And how we try to solve that problem, the Puritans gave us by saying, okay, if you're successful, if you've got money, you've got property, that means you're blessed by God. Okay, so maybe I could just get the money somehow or other and I don't have to worry about it. It'll show that I'm blessed by God. Okay, so that's part of our wound.
Makes sense.
So we have to learn that materialism isn't the thing that makes you happy.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No.
You want contentment. Happiness lasts for a few minutes, but then you want contentment. I'm content where I live, what I have, what I'm doing, etc. So the healing of that is very important. And you think about it, we have to have a wake-up call in this country to say, our problem is materialism, guys. And our present is like an archetype of a King Midas, even with all the gold in his Oval Office. It's an archetype of greed. There's not enough, We have to realize that that's not who we are.
Yeah.
We are representative of finer ideals. We are a community. We're going into Aquarius. Aquarius has to do with community, that we are all part of this community, and that's all important.
Yeah.
When you think about our country, you think about where we came from all these immigrants. We have people from all over the world. And we've had to learn to live together. That's our motto, is from many, one. But we haven't achieved that yet.
Mhm.
But it stands as a model to the rest of the world, because now we have evolved up to an evolutionary stage where we're ready to be global. And so we can be a model of, yes, this can work.
Yeah.
We can all be a community. The world can become a community that we all share and that we all cooperate and solve all the problems of humanity together.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. And it speaks completely to the Aquarius at the midheaven of
I
this
think
chart.
so, yes.
Yeah. And the Pluto stellium there with Jupiter. It is about us working together and coming together and the freedom to have our own beliefs
Right,
and our own faiths,
right.
right? But we have to have that core, set of laws to keep us a civil nation that we can all agree to abide by,
Yes.
right?
We have to learn respect for differences,
Absolutely.
which we try to teach children.
Yes, we do.
We talk about temperament being different, and they require understanding.
Mhm.
It's the same thing with us. We have to understand other people's visions too.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when you come down to the human family, we all need the same things. We need shelter. We need a place for our family. We need to bring up our children. We need health care. We need all these things that make us have a wonderful life together.
Yeah. And when you speak to temperament, we often say that sometimes when children are young, their temperaments are a little bit more challenging for parents to handle. But
Yes.
you have to cultivate that so that they can really rise. There's some really good things that come from those tougher moments,
Right.
right? But we have to grow into that. We are growing into our son, evolving
Right.
into, and that is the ego, how we help children develop a healthy ego. So the temperament of this chart, of if this chart were a person, is a young adolescent who's trying to find themselves
Right.
and find their place in the world and how they can, that belonging,
Right.
right?
I think so, yes.
I love that. It's beautiful. And if we go to this Venus in Sagittarius here, it speaks to the women, right? And
It does speak
It's-
to the women and Sag.
yeah, and the basis of this yod that we talk about makes that sextile to that stellium. So can you speak to the Venus and Sag?
Well, Sag likes freedom. It likes you to be able to express yourself as who you are, because Sagittarius can be very blunt,
Yes.
just speak out and say what needs to be done. And women do that quite often.
Yes, we do.
I think it's interesting that it's in the seventh house. So I think in America, women have been too often considered the enemy.
Yeah.
And right now we're in a period where it seems like they're trying to push us back into that state where we started, where women had no rights at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's scary.
Yes,
So it's time for a wake up.
absolutely. And I think we're going to be getting that in the fact that the base of that yod is a strong sextile to that stellium,
Right.
shows the women's role
That's
in this
right.
evolution.
That's
I mean,
right.
all us women know that, but I think that that's one of the
Yes.
things that this country and the patriarchy and all that has to wake up to, is that women have a role and a voice. And I
That's
think
right.
women are definitely doing that.
Right. And our children are the future.
Yes. So this actually leads me to that moon in Libra with Neptune there. I mean, let's talk about women and mothers and nurturing, raising children, and bringing balance more into the home. There are more men who are staying home with the children and who are getting involved, bringing that,
Yes.
balance in. But women were working behind the scenes. We're always behind the scenes,
Right.
handling so much. So I think it is about balance, and we know that in relationships and in the home.
Yes. Whenever you see an opposition, or you have to see, because it makes a T square here, so
Yes.
you have to talk about, yes, what were the role of women? It's mostly behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
like Abigail Adams, telling her husband, you better take care of the ladies, or otherwise you're going to have a rebellion on his hand. And she said that in the 70s. So, I mean, and it fits today. I
It
mean, we've been
absolutely is.
doing that ever since.
Absolutely. And that Venus now, predominantly in Sag, is the basis. It's making a nice sextile there to that stellium.
Exactly.
So it is about women getting their role, being heard, their voices, and not in a way that's, egotistical and taking over, but rightfully taking their place to help create that balance.
And I think when you think it's in Sag, as women are saying, we want some freedom here.
Mhm.
We want to make decisions too.
Yes.
We want to be a part of the government too.
Absolutely.
Look how long it took us.
Yeah, I know. We almost made it, right?
Yeah.
And so, children, we talk about that are the future. And in your book, Kid Wheels, you start out with that quote from Marianne Williamson.
Yes, she says the only way to improve the planet or our world is to make sure that we're raising our children the right way.
Yeah. And the only way to change the world is to change the way we raise our children.
Yes, raise children. And we want to raise them to be happy, successful,
Yeah.
content children.
Yeah. And I think that's why our work together with conscious parenting and astrology is so impactful and powerful. It isn't just about the family, but the ripple effect that takes in the world. So if the children are our future, let's talk about the future.
Okay.
So looking at this chart and what's coming forward, what are some of the key transits or things that are coming forward, and how are they activating this chart? How do you see them for the vision of the future?
Well, we're going through a lot of things that are similar to what happened in 1776, but even though we're repeating that same kind of anxiety and upset and depression that there was before they actually said, no, we want to be independent. Now we're at the same situation where we're having Pluto come up here. It's going to hit our Mercury first, which is the ruler of our chart. To me, that says, okay, it's a wake-up call. Wake up, America. Remember what our values are. From many, one, e pluribus unum. And then Pluto, by the time it gets to its own place, will have gone through this change, I'm sure. That we'll have a wake-up call. I think the wake-up call is already happening.
Yeah, and for people who look at the chart where we thought we were having this Pluto return already, Pluto was actually on the sun of this chart. And so it has begun. It was the breakdown, the beginning of that breakdown.
Right.
And we're in it. So that's not wrong. It's just we're not quite there. So like you said, once it reaches that Mercury is where we can really start rebuilding and having deeper conversations. You even spoke about, the Constitution being a living document and it needing to evolve as we're evolving.
Exactly, because you could just take a simple example like the Second Amendment about guns. We've had a situation but because people have never really understood that back in the 1770s, the people relied on the community to get together to protect themselves because they didn't have cops on the corner.
Right.
They didn't have police. They didn't have an army there. They had to get together and get some training about how to fight, etc., to protect their community. But we don't need that anymore. We have a National Guard. Okay, it's regimented and it has rules and so on. So we really don't need all those guns anymore. So that's just an example of what needs to be changed.
And you say at the time that the Constitution was written?
At the time the Constitution that was written, it was when it was ratified. Okay. The chart shows that the top, the midheaven, is 29 Pisces, which represents a prism with white light going through the prism and breaking into a rainbow of colors. And I think that demonstrates to us and to the world that we are modeling to the rest of the world, look, we can all get together. We're made up of all these different people. More so than anybody else. And we've learned, of course, we still have to learn how to live totally together as a community. I mean, that's our wake-up call. But then represents that whole idea of that we are a global family and that we all have to work together to solve the problems of mankind, like climate change, like overpopulation. These things have to be solved with everybody working together. So it becomes a global community, not
Yeah.
just the United States.
I think a key to that breakdown was COVID, because
Yes.
Pluto was hitting that sun around COVID. And that was the first time we really started to see that we really are all connected. Something that could, happen over across the globe could really affect everyone. So I
Right.
think that was the beginning of that. And people talked about it being that return.
Right.
And I do think it was the beginning. But the process and the growth and the evolution has to be looking at ourselves in the mirror and looking at our neighbors and really coming back to the idea of community and
Yeah.
supporting and freedom, live and let live mentality. I'm an Aquarius sun, live and let live, right?
Well, I think it's more than that. I think it has to involve that you are different than me,
And that's good.
but we have many things in common.
Yes.
And so we have to respect each other for our differences.
Yeah. I think the forefathers got it right. It's just about us kind of growing up and stepping into that.
Right, exactly.
Living up to the potential of that. And we always say in astrology, there is a promise of the chart.
Right.
But it takes engagement. It takes conscious,
Right. I think we're ready for that. I think people are getting ready for that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't see all those people out there protesting.
Right.
Which reflects our revolution. They're saying no kings. We don't want any kings.
Yeah. Okay, so let's recap some of these transits, okay, for the future, for these just next few years where we're going to be really going through it, right?
Right.
So you talk about the Aries vortex that happens February 2026. Then we go into Uranus in 2028. We'll actually be going over the ascendant of this chart, which is
Right.
significant. And then in 2028 again is when that Pluto finally meets the Mercury. And then in 2029 into 2030 is when we get the actual Pluto return.
Right.
Right. So, how do you hope that this book contributes to the vision of this future and how some of these transits play out? Like, what is your hope for the national healing, the future leadership, or the transformation of this country?
I wanted to bring out to the American public the issues that they've had to deal with in our 250 years of history, and that many of them have not been resolved, but that it is time to be e pluribus unum,
Right.
from many one.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to offer some hope that this is going to happen, because I know astrologers are talking about the Aries vortex, and this has never happened before. And it seems like they were going into a whole new era.
Oh, yeah.
Which we don't know exactly what it's going to be like, but it still is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
So we can look forward to it. It says, even though we're going through all this anxiety right now, that's going to end sooner or later, because evolution moves forward. It doesn't go backwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we have agency. This chart shows we have agency.
Right.
In this process.
Yes.
And you don't necessarily make predictions in the book, but you do show that we have choice.
Yes.
That we do have that agency, and we do have a role to play.
Yes.
A significant role to play in
Right.
what the future of our country will be, and can we set that example and bring the world together?
Yes, I think the American public now is kind of like upset with their government. It's gone beyond them. It just sort of runs itself. They don't feel engaged.
Mhm.
They don't feel part of it. They feel like these people are put up to elect and they don't know which one to vote for. So I think they're looking forward to, even though we're going through a process right now of breaking down our structures, because Pluto does that. Transformation means break down the structures so that something new can rise up, right?
Right.
The phoenix from the ashes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And nobody's ever said that transformation was an easy process.
No, it's certainly not. It's like a birth.
It is. Oh,
Births are not easy, face it.
exactly.
Right, women?
We're in some labor pains right now, for sure.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So what about this return, this ultimate return? Do you think that it will be on that forward motion by that 2030 mark? I know that a lot of people have spoken about this
Yes.
decade being very significant. Will we be on the road to
Right.
that come 2029, 2030?
I think so. When you think about Uranus going over our ascendant,
Mm.
Many times we've had wars at that time, but now I think we have a war of ideas. It doesn't have to be a physical revolution.
I love that. Yeah, they've been talking about each time Uranus was in Gemini and it was a wartime.
Right.
And I've always felt that this type of war is very different that we're in.
Right.
But I like what you're saying. It is a war of ideas.
It is.
And I think part of it is how can we become inclusive and make room for everyone's ideas and create an environment and a global community that
In a
allows
global
us
community, exactly.
to
that's
all
it.
express, to all be, the ultimate compassion for
Right.
each other.
That's right.
I totally agree. And you even say that, to remind us that this was not just a history lesson you wanted to give or an astrology project. This was a personal assignment from
Yeah,
your heart.
it almost felt that way. So, because so many things fell into place by things happening in a synchronistic way. Like, where did that come from? Which led me to another place, which then led me to another place. So it was kind of like an exploration, but it was like a passion for me
Mhm.
because I was saying my parents, my grand ancestors fought in the revolution and established this country government.
Mhm.
So they're calling out to me, just saying, okay, it's time to go back to our roots and find out who we really are.
Yeah.
What does the adolescent say? I mean, the adolescent is saying, who am I?
Mhm.
Who am I in the world? How do I behave in the world? What values do I have?
Yeah. And it's also when they start to rebel against their parents.
Right.
It's like, who am I separate from those people that raised me?
Right.
Right. So
Exactly.
now it's like, who am I in the world? How can I be a citizen and be a part of it? With honoring how I was raised and the people who loved me and gave me those things, but that I may not agree with, or I don't see the world the way they do.
Right.
So it speaks very much to the energy of that chart. And you even say that you have some astrological connections to this chart, that your midheaven
Yes.
is this chart's north node at 10 Pisces.
Yes. My midheaven is 10 Pisces.
This is very much part of a calling for you to
And
write
my
this
Venus
book.
is right on the Uranus here, so it's part of the yod. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, that's what I wanted to know. Why do we come here?
Mm-hmm. And you've lived, that's the thing that's so amazing about this research that you've done, but you have so much lived experience with this as well.
That's true.
You've lived through so much and seen a lot of this firsthand. So I think it's such a beautiful tribute to your family and your ancestors as well.
Yes.
So, and I don't think there's any mistake that I'm here with you, as my midheaven is 14 Aquarius.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I was honored to be a part of this journey and support you through it. And I know that it's very meaningful to you, and your heart is at the core of it. Your passion and love for this country is at the core of it.
Right.
And I know that that's, a big hope for the future.
Right. Exactly. And I have to mention that Dominique is the one that looked at all my charts and validated them, because I wanted somebody else to have a look at it, that I was interpreting it correctly.
Yes. And I had a great time doing that because I learned the history and, I loved reading the astrology. So you did a fabulous job at that. The book is beautifully written, and I love how each chapter she actually takes a title of a song that is at the beginning of each chapter.
Right.
And I love the Neil Diamond Coming to America is a chapter. And then I think it ends with what song?
Where do we go from here, boys? Where do we go from here?
Good question.
That's the question, isn't it?
Yes, but I do think the chart really does help us figure out where that is, where we are going.
Yes, we're not done yet.
Now, Cornelia, I know we could talk forever about this. This has been so enlightening and so wonderful. But if anyone has questions, drop them in the comments, and maybe we'll have Cornelia back to answer those for you.
Yeah.
There could be lots of questions, I'm sure. I'm sure you're open to a little bit of debate about things, because astrologers will have their thoughts, right? So drop questions, and maybe we'll come back and do a follow-up and answer those questions for everyone, right?
Right.
So do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to say about the project or the book itself?
Well, I did want to mention the name underneath mine is My daughter, Karen Steinberg,
Mm.
she's the one who worked with me from the very beginning because she's such a great editor, and she knows all about resources, putting them in the right way. So it was wonderful working with her, and of course you too. And of course, I have to thank AFA. They were so wonderful that I was already turned down by one publisher, but when I went to AFA, she said, well, she was going to show it to the head of it, and he said, yes, we'll do it. And I was so thrilled at that moment.
Absolutely. It found its right home.
Right, it's found its right home because Celeste, she's the executive secretary. She was such a support, so enthusiastic, and so helpful all the way through till we got the print out, and I was just tickle pink.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for sitting here with me today. It was so great being with you live and in person.
Thank you.
For sharing your wisdom, your amazing research, and your passion for this work and this project. And everyone, make sure you grab your copy of An Astrological Journey of the United States, introducing a new birth chart for the United States. You can pick it up at AFA on their website and soon on Amazon and anywhere else that you get your books. And thanks a lot for listening and being here today. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. In the meantime, keep nurturing your astrology, friends. Thanks for listening, and I hope you gained some great astrology insight and inspiration from today's show. I'd love to hear, so drop me a comment or share in a review. Check out the show notes for all the details and links about today's episode, how you can connect with me on social or work with me directly. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Oh, and for my moms out there, be sure to join my private Conscious Parenting with Astrology Moms group on Facebook. Come join a growing community of like-minded mamas supporting each other in the hardest job in the world with the help of astrology. Hope to see you over there. Take care and keep nurturing the nature, friends. I'll see you on the next episode.